Well, for episode number 36, I've got another familiar face to those people. If you work actually in the automotive industry, but also if you are in the sim racing space, he's also a driver, a resident social media guru, and also a team manager. Welcome along to Commentator's Corner, Max Spooner from Quatermass Motorsport. Buddy, we didn't have much of a chance to catch up at the Sim Racing Expo in Dortmund, but we managed to cross paths a couple of times, didn't we?
Yeah, that was a really busy show. I mean, we were there for all 3 days, and we sort of thought to ourselves when we went out there, are we going to be able to keep ourselves busy for that long? But yeah, it was a really good show. Met a lot of really, really good people and saw some really exciting technology coming into our sport.
Brilliant. Well, Max, as I always like all of my guests to do, could you please introduce yourself to the folks at home?
Yes, hi there. I'm Max Spooner. You may have seen me in such productions like the SMC Motor Group YouTube channel. I'm also the former team manager of E-Team Brit, and now I am the team owner of Quatermass Motorsport.
Right, let's get down to brass tacks. Now, for those that might have known of E-Team Brit, well, we were both... that's how we got to know each other, through the Team Brit Summer Series on ACC back in May of 2020. Of course, Team Brit, run by Dave Player, is the all-disabled outfit that have been running in a multitude of motorsport categories, including most recently British GT and the McLaren Trophy Europe, when I managed to catch up with the legend that is Bobby Trunby. Bobby, your number's up, mate. You're coming on this show whether you like it or not at some point, if I can get a hold of the bugger. But Max, of course, disability. Let's talk about that kind of representation in motorsport. And that was one of the main reasons why I felt it was right to bring Max on the show, because Max is autistic, on the autistic spectrum. But disability can be used as a motivational superpower, can't it, Max?
It can, and certainly when you think going into next year, we're going to have another Paralympics in Paris, which I'm really excited about. But yeah, disability sport and sort of like having bringing the attention to what disabled people can do despite their limitations, when you give them a purpose and a drive and something to achieve, that we can go on and do some extraordinary things. And through my work that I did with E-Team Brit and with Quatermass Motorsport, I feel like we're in a really strong position to sort of demonstrate what can be done.
I think also one of the big things that, from my takeaway from getting to know you, also there's another ex-E-Team Brit alumni, Mike Tyler, on the team as well. Great to see. I was walking to the exhibitor office, and I think one morning you guys were walking into the hall. But I think it's really, really good that that we all know that disability has different forms, from autism, lack of muscle maneuverability, any sort of, like, say with Mike, for instance, he races with one hand, for instance. I think it doesn't matter the form of the disability. It doesn't impede people, does it?
No, absolutely not. And that was something that's always been a frustration for me. Certainly in my experience, when you tell people you're autistic, they look at the negative. They look at, oh, well, he's going to be rocking in the corner. He's going to be having a panic attack. Or I'm not going to be able to, walk into the room without him freaking out or anything like that. And I think what we've tried to do as a team is take those people who think that I've got nothing to live for. Nobody wants to give me a job. Nobody's got the time of day for me. Is to think, okay, let's look at the individual we've got in front of us. what skill set have they got? What can we do to develop that skill set, or teach them new skills? So that, are they punctual? Are they a team player? Almost like give them that project where they think, right, I've got something here that I can latch onto, and then when I'm ready to go out into the world of work, I can say, look, I might not have any qualifications because I was written off at school, or any job history, but I've been working with E-Team Brit or Quatermass Motorsport, and I have joined them from here, and this is what we've gone on to achieve. These are the skills and some of the things that we do, and the things I've learned, and now I want to apply that into the world of work. So the work that we did was never just about making a disabled person a sim racer. For me, it was much more than that. It was using sim racing as a platform to develop disabled people to integrate better into society, and to give them that drive and that purpose, and to show the world, that just because somebody hasn't got the use of their left arm, or they're missing a leg, or because they are neurodivergent, they have autism or something, doesn't mean they're an idiot, and that actually you could be potentially missing out on some really great people for your business or your organization, because of this somewhat blinkered view of disability.
Yeah, I mean, for those wondering, my 4-year-old nephew, Austin, is heavily autistic. He is non-verbal, very, very vocal. I can hear him actually bouncing up and down on the floor in the background, on the floor above the office. And I understand that, because you cannot judge a book by its cover. That is 100% the case. And I think also it's not just about the qualities that individual brings to the team, but it's also helping them develop life skills for full-time employment, careers that they want to go into. And I know people who are autistic who are public speakers, and they still have those nervous, autistic derived reactions, but they're able to center themselves. It is very much a case of finding out the right character, how they fit into the team, but how you can work with them to give them those everyday life skills. And that's something that you champion. I mean, this man's content on the SMC YouTube channel is articulate, it's well presented, it's concise. And having known Max for I think, is it what now, 3.5 years, buddy? I can see
More than that, I think it's probably closer to 4 years.
Oh, bloody hell. But the thing is that people like Max, who can articulate, who can be very concise and very, very much like everybody else, like you or me or anyone that's watching or anyone that's listening, it is a case of it's all part of the human condition. This does happen. It's part of modern day society. And there needs to be, I think, the representation from entities such as Team Brit, from Quatermass Motorsport, and other entities that work with it. Of course, our good friend Yvonne Huffler with United Sim Team is a perfect example. The shell is just part of the story. It's the character, the individual within. Because they do say that beauty is in the eye of the beholder, which basically means don't judge appearances. And as I've got to know you, Max, there are times when we've had a conversation, but we've been able to amicably come to a conclusion where you've thrown one idea at me, and I've gone, well, yeah, but look at it like this. So it's more about working with the person rather than working against them. And that's what you all have to consider when it comes to representation within the disability sphere. I mean, let's take, for instance, Matty Street, who's dyslexic and dyspraxic, and he runs multiple businesses, including XCart, also team karting up north in Rochdale. He's a perfect example of someone who's young, who's hungry, who's driven. And Matty, stop sending me WhatsApp messages at 11 o'clock at night. You're an absolute fiend for doing that. But he is very, very passionate. He's using his disabilities, being dyslexic, being dyspraxic, to work to his advantage, knowing where his strengths lie, and to go from there. Very much like yourself, Max.
Oh, why, thank you. But Matty, I've been fortunate enough to spend time with Matty, and I've seen the good work that he does firsthand, and I think to some of when you invited me onto this podcast, and I was sort of thinking about what I was going to talk about, and sort of like some of the drivers who have raced for me in whatever form, and some of the things they've gone on to do. And I think, if you were to ask me what was my biggest moment from the work I do, is seeing um, those individuals grow and develop. I mean, I've got drivers who have gone through school and now into college and into the world of work. I've seen drivers go on to compete in blue chip um, massive events in the likes of Vegas. Um, I'm very fortunate to have been involved in the lives of some very impressive alumni, and that for me is my biggest takeaway is knowing that in some way me and the team, we played our part in helping that person. And we taught them some skills, and maybe even taught them a few life lessons that maybe we taught them a little bit earlier than they would have done, but that's given them an advantage going into later life. And it's just fantastic to see. And I think, if other people could sort of think, we've done this with very little resource. A lot of it is time, and I've surrounded myself with a team of good people. Are we the whole package yet? No, there are. If you said to me, Max, what are areas you need to fill? I could probably name 3 or 4 areas where I need good people in those places to help move us forward. And in terms of money, there was never a huge amount of money to do what we do. A lot of it comes out of my back pocket. Sometimes we have to say to drivers that we want to compete in this event, it's going to cost this amount of money. If we want team kit, everybody's got to sort of chip in so that we can be looking our best. But we make sure that what we can do, we do as good as we can, and we use our experience and our knowledge and our life experience and pass that on to our other drivers and team members as well.
Yeah, let's get into your story personally. That's one of the main reasons why I invited you on the show. When did it all start? When you were diagnosed as being on the autistic syndrome, and how has your life sort of moved on from that particular moment? Obviously, let's negate everything that's happened, like say with E-Team Brit and Quatermass Motorsport. But when did that happen, and how has that journey been up until, let's say, before you joined SMC, as an example?
Yeah, so I was diagnosed back in 2004. It was just before I was about to go to secondary school. And at the time, I didn't really think there was anything wrong with me per se. I mean, to other people, it was very obvious, but I never quite understood what all the fuss was about. And I would often go to the hospital sort of during the school, and I always just thought, hey, it's a morning out of school, to go to the hospital with my mum, but not fully understanding why I was going. And my doctor at the time, knew there was something not quite right, and so I was referred to a specialist, and I was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome. And certainly through my school life, particularly in secondary school, it was tough because anybody who's different is immediately weird. They get picked on, and with the boys it was physical, and with the girls a lot of it was psychological, and it hurt, and it was difficult to comprehend because I couldn't understand why I was highlighted as being so different to everybody else and having this label. And not knowing what autism was, and at the time, a lot of other people didn't understand what autism was. There was some of my teachers who just thought, he'll grow out of it. But as I got older, I recognised it was a lifelong condition, and as those around me matured, it became easier to integrate. And then I think the turning point for me was London 2012. You often hear Seb Coe talk about how he wanted to inspire a generation. Well, if any Paralympians or anybody involved in that project is watching, yeah, you can include me. Job done. Because when I went to the Paralympic Games in London, and I got to go to the Olympic Park, and we got to see the swimming with me and my brother, and my perception changed completely. It was all of a sudden, I shouldn't look at my disability as all the things I can't do because of it, but actually focus on look at what I can do despite it. And so, 2012 was the point of which I was leaving college and going into the world of work. And it was tough for me to really get a foot in. I was working a 60-hour week job in Halfords, which was a part-time contract. So everything I was doing was overtime. So I wasn't getting the holiday pay. I wasn't entitled to many of the benefits you'd get working as a full-time employee. And so I was basically I was scrimping and scraping every penny I could because I wanted to go racing, and I had and still have got a low-cost race car, and it was, I would work flat out to do 2 or 3 rounds a year. We were at the back of the grid because me and my dad, we didn't really know what we were doing. We were spannering a car for the first time, and oh, by the way, it's a race car, and oh, by the way, you're going to be compared to 40 other cars all doing the same thing with vastly more years of experience than we had. So yeah, it was a very humbling experience, and kind of realized, oh my god, we are so out of our depth. And then I changed jobs. I joined Euro Car Parts, and that ended badly. I did 36 days before giving the old heave-ho. And then we were flooded. And as a result, I lost the car, because if anybody knows sort of where I live in Chertsey in Surrey, next to the River Thames and the River Bourne. In my case, I was in the River Bourne.
Literally, not figuratively.
Yeah, literally. And yeah, so the car was heavily damaged to the point it was pretty much a write-off. But the insurance company paid out, and at the time I had a choice. I could rebuild the car, go racing. Didn't have a job, but hey, I had money to go racing, so not the end of the world. But then I had an opportunity to start my own business, and I joined my business partner Neil, and we started Craftwork Tools UK. And that was really when my world or my story in motorsport really kicked off. As in our second year, we partnered with Welch Motorsport in the British Touring Car Championship. And that was from there I started to network, and I met some great people who to this day I can still call upon and can call a friend. And that lasted for 2 years till I ran out of money. And then I joined the motor trade, starting as a salesman selling SsangYong, which was an interesting brand. I think a brand that a lot of people don't give credit for, because while it's a small brand, the quality of the product was there, but unfortunately some of their earlier work kind of left the brand a little bit tainted, shall we say. But the newer stuff was certainly on a par with anything any of the mainstream brands are offering now. And then I joined Volvo shortly after that, as a product specialist. And it was while I was there, I met Alex as I sort of started my journey in professional esports. Before I'd been sim racing since 2008 with R Factor 1. And the only reason I got into it was because Bernie Ecclestone didn't do a license with Sony to do a new Formula One game. So I was drastically looking for Formula One video game content. And it was from that I discovered the MMG F1 2007 mod. So the more older sim racers will probably recognise that, and that is how I got into sim racing. It was through racing that and taking part in leagues and so on. But it was always community. It was always a small community. It was always very niche what I was doing. You know, I was playing with a PS3 controller that I'd managed to hack to work on my PC. It wasn't probably till 2 years in I actually bought my first wheel system, which was a Logitech G25. And even then, I was still chopping and changing between the controller and the wheel because I was still quicker on the controller, and I was having to persevere to get better on the wheel. But it wasn't until 2019 that I actually thought I need to start looking into this sim racing malark because this is getting big now, and I kind of feel like I don't want to be left behind. And from there, I saw an advert to join E-Team Brit. Thought, well, this would be fantastic. You know, a disabled sim racing team. That sounds like the perfect place for me to go and go do my sim racing. I dabbled with a couple of other teams, but it was never quite. You know, you were joining an established organization. Everybody knew everybody, and it was very difficult to sort of like get in and familiar with people. And I wasn't that quick to start with, so I found it very difficult. But this was a new operation that I joined, and under the guidance of Paul, who was the original team manager, um, I cut my teeth with professional sim racing, and then in was April 2020, just after lockdown hit, Paul and some of the other members of the team decided to step away because they kind of just wanted to go back to that community kind of racing. Whereas I saw an opportunity, we could really do something special with this team, and so I threw my hat into the ring to become the new team manager. Dave gave me his blessing, and away we went. And as I transitioned and became the team manager, we were doing the summer series, and I believe Alex, you came in and joined us at Suzuka.
Yeah, round
My
5.
memory serves me correctly.
Yeah, which I still can't remember the second half of qualifying. I still can't remember it. But then I'm going to continue the story that we then started what eventually became the E-Team Brit GT Challenge, which first of all ventured onto RF2. We had quite a few teams jump on board, such as Ancho Simsport, Team Fordzilla, way back when Charlie Crossland was still running with them. And now he's with Williams Esports these days. We had 3 seasons, and we had myself and the Scottish wonder that is Mr. David Christie on the comms.
Yep.
We had Mike Yao behind the scenes producing it. And
legend of our sport.
Oh, he is the Swiss Army knife of sim racing broadcasting. Anyone who does not mention Mike Yao at the top of his game, you don't know what you're doing that man a disservice. Complete.
But you think that GT challenge, we had some big names in that. I mean, really big names.
We did. We even had Freddie Hunt in it at one point.
Yeah, I mean, I was racing with Freddie Hunt. So for the first season.
Yeah.
As part of Team Brit's partnership with Texaco.
Yeah.
Freddie, as a brand ambassador, came and raced from the workshop, and I would race alongside with him, and it was a fantastic opportunity to get to know Freddie a little bit. And it was kind of funny. At one point, I turned around to him and said, "Your dad was a Formula One world champion. My dad sells kitchens." And it was all like, "Here we are, and we're racing together in this sim." And he was, putting it politely, inexperienced. And
well, yeah. I mean, the thing is that at the end of the day, funnily enough, last year I ended up doing a. There was an event on at Rye House, and it was all organised through the family of Jalath Sayer, who's running in karting these days. And I was the MC. I also did the commentary for the endurance event, and then I was then the auction. I was the caller at the auction. And we had Freddie, we had Amy Watts, daughter of BTCC legend Patrick. They were there as well, and it was really, really cool. And I thought, hang on a second, I can't believe it. Like literally 3 years ago, I was commentating on Freddie Hunt in the E-Team Brit GT Challenge, and now I'm chin wagging to him face to face. And you know what's even weirder, Max? E-Team Brit didn't even get a mention, not even the GT Challenge, because we were concentrating on the day, which was raising money. I think it was the what was the name? I think it was the British Ukrainian Organisation, a charity in London. And the lady who's one of the directors, one of the founders, said, "Thank you so much," like so often. It was like someone was saying thank you to the point of where you being the recipient, where you're nearly blue in the face with embarrassment. Forget the beetroot red. It was bluer than this shirt that I'm currently wearing at the moment. And that's always quite funny when you look at where we were 3.5 years ago.
I think the biggest point where I thought, "Oh my God, is this happening?" was season 2, and we had Jenson Button, a Formula One world champion, coming to compete in our little championship that we cobbled together in our bedroom. So we were like, we got a Formula One world champion racing in our championship. How has this happened? This was like, I can remember when I announced it to the team, and I've never known so many drivers to get so excited about the prospect of that. And he only joined us for 2 rounds, and there was always this element of doubt in my head: is it the real gentleman? Is it just somebody who's sort of like, just pretending to be Jenson? But then when I saw that he'd shared the champion, I think one of the graphics you made on his Instagram, and I've got that screenshotted on my phone to this day. I was like, no, this is happening. This is really how I was just like, and he was so good to us because he gave us almost carte blanche to basically promote it to the hills that Jenson was going to be racing with us, and to be promoting it himself. Was just so good at him, and everybody I speak to speaks so highly of Jenson. So and his teammate Alex as well. Alex Buncombe, who also joined us, and as I said, you just think of the caliber of people who came and raced with us when we did the GT Challenge, and the teams, Fordzilla, Sancho, Rocket Esports. As I say, I look at some of those teams now, and they're like racing in the likes of the Virtual Le Mans and the VCO, and you just think, it was only a handful of years ago they were racing with us, and to think we were going wheel to wheel with these teams and drivers as a team of disabled drivers ourselves. It kind of has always been that motivation for me to keep doing this, because it's like, given the opportunity, this is what we can do. And so yeah, it's what we've done. And as I said, for me, I don't know about you, but that moment for me was like, oh my God, this is happening, and we're a big deal now. Almost like, it's like, really, us? It's like, I mean, I suffer imposter syndrome at the best of times, but I don't know about you.
I do from the odd occasion. We'll get onto that in a minute. When you said, Alex, check out our socials, and I looked and I went, cool. Like, I was Mr. Calmness personified. Like,
I wasn't.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God.
Max was like one of these black cats that's just literally jumped off from the carpet and made a beeline straight for the roof and are like hanging in with the claws. That's how much excitement was with this man. Like, literally. Yeah. And I just went, oh yeah. And then I went and told Max the story about how my name made it onto a Formula One FIA post-qualifying transcript at the 2014 British Grand Prix. Your boy here asked Mr. Button a question because Mercedes that weekend dropped the ball in a very, very mixed weather qualifying session. Because Hamilton ended up 6th, JB was 3rd. And I said, didn't quite go the way for Mercedes, so it seems like you've become Britain's big, next best hope. How are you feeling about tomorrow? I do actually have the transcript in a print off. It is in a folder down here by my desk. It is literally pride of place. But yeah, it was. I still remember Alex Buncombe getting no amount of luck in that season
I
when he
seem to
joined.
remember I was involved in a lot of his bad luck, whether it was through fault or not. I always seem to have been there.
Well, I think it was just like
I was starting to think he's gonna hate me. He's gonna think I'm an idiot. Why is it always when something goes wrong for either one of us, we are both involved in this?
it's like Max had the why me complex for a complete season of the GT Challenge. It was, but I think the thing was by having someone like Jensen say, look, carte blanche. It really does showcase that there are genuine people out there, and Jensen is one of them because, of course, now at this point, the new 4-part series telling the story about Brawn GP. Well done, Keanu.
I've seen the first episode. I've still got to catch up on the other 3. I'm watching it with my mum and dad. So
I've seen the first episode, and I have to say, Keanu Reeves was the perfect host choice. Perfect host choice for that in my particular opinion, because he comes across just like an everyday person. Doesn't come across as like a big celebrity, and that's the thing.
He has that reputation as well, though, as being someone who is just genuinely down to earth and just a great guy to be around.
Yeah, right.
I've never met the guy, but
No.
I'm taking it from other people's word.
I nearly did when his motorcycle company called Arch made its debut at the Goodwood Festival of Speed in 2016, and that weekend was my sister's birthday. Funny enough, my now brother-in-law was working as a part of the security detail for the Tag Heuer booth. Managed to get a video of Keanu wishing my sister happy birthday. And I was like thinking, damn, I didn't get to meet him either. And I was at that point.
He must have scored a lot of Bradley points that day.
Oh my god! I can probably still feel my ears burning because I remember how the video went. It's just like, but it was back then. That was my. That was over 7 years ago, and it was my only time that I'd ever been to the Goodwood Festival of Speed because I was there with David Vardy and the team at what was then known as VRD Motorsport, running with the Volkswagen Beetle run by Bob Beals, and so I was part of the crew there, and I was, funny enough, I was working for a Hyundai dealer at the time. Max,
I believe the terminology is Hyundai.
You are Hyundai, yeah. Sorry.
Get your pronunciations right. Come on.
Don't you start on me, Spooner. This is the kind of banter that goes on. I mean, how long have you been in the motor industry now, mate? I'm trying to remember.
I'm now in 8 years. 2015 is August 2015 is when I started.
Blooming hell. Well, when I got made redundant from MSX International on September 1st, 2020, I'd been in the business for 25 years. Long old time. And that was alongside the first 10 years of motorsport as a writer, and then that ended up being into commentating. Max, that's been really, really cool having those kind of insights. But I do have some questions that I normally ask my guests anyway. Now, Max is a big petrol head. He did ask me for the questions up front. I wasn't going to give them to him. but this is the whole point about Commentator's Corner. I want it to be coming across as natural as possible, which is why some of the questions aren't fixed, because it's always about letting the conversation evolve. And I really do appreciate Max talking to me about, disability representation and obviously his story with regards to it. But we get into the good stuff, which is talking about cars and racing and other bits and pieces. So Max, what was the first ever motorsport event you attended? And give me the details. So, like, when, where, what racing did you see? Who was the catalyst that brought you along?
So the first event I went to was back in 2010, and it was the Renault World Series at Silverstone, and my dad's best friend from school, he recently came back on the scene. My dad hadn't seen him for years, and it was for a chance meeting I think he had at work. He managed to get back in contact with him, and he invited us up Silverstone with his new girlfriend and her daughter to basically go watch some racing. And when Renault were doing these events, they were free because it was basically just a big advert for Renault. So I went there and we saw Clio Cup, we saw Megane V6 trophies, and we saw all of the junior single-seater categories for Renault. And I remember I was sat in the grandstand at what is now the Hamilton Straight. This was before the new pit complex was. I think they were building it, but it hadn't been finished. They were racing the new circuit, and there was a driver in there called Daniel Ricciardo, and I remember saying to my mum and dad, I said, he's one to watch. He's meant to be really good, and they're talking him as a potential Formula One driver. So I remember watching Danny Rick all those years ago at that event, and yeah, so that was the first one, and it was quite funny because when we were going through the crowds, Nigel Mansell came past, and my brother, who is not a motorsport fan, to put it mildly, shouted very loudly, "Who is Nigel Mansell?" And the crowd turned on him. And one of them turned and said, "Mate, you're in the wrong place if you don't know who Nigel Mansell is." He's like, "I don't know. I follow motorsport." It's like, oh god. And so we had to get out of there pretty sharpish.
I bet you were beetroot red with embarrassment all over that boat race of yours. Bloody hell.
I mean, I'd only been following Formula One probably 3 years at that point, but even I picked up on who were the legends of the sport at that point. That was my first foray into motorsport in real life.
Well, I mean, that's really sort of negated the fact of a funny moment on social media. That's the funniest story I've ever heard, that someone's shouting out when they've gone past Il Leone and shouted out, "Who is Nigel Mansell?" I mean, it's absolutely priceless.
Of all the places to say it as well.
A circuit where he got mobbed by the crowds in '92.
Yeah.
And also, if anyone might famously remember that a certain Ayrton Senna ran out of fuel one particular British Grand Prix.
Don't mention that name to him because he probably wouldn't have any idea who that is either.
No, exactly. But at least you could say to Nigel, I remember giving him a taxi ride in the Williams. It was quite nice. Okay. Inspirations. Who are the people that inspire you? Now, this can be from any walk of life, be it motorsport, be it Paralympics. Are there any real people that inspire you to strive for more?
So in terms of, it's a tricky one because I mean, I was always growing up, I was always a big Lewis Hamilton fan, but in terms of actual,
I think it's more of a generalized,
and I think, I mean, don't get me wrong, I loved him as a racer, but was he an inspiration? Difficult to say because obviously I wanted to do what he did, as did any influential 15-year-old did. But in terms of the people who I feel were the real inspirations, the people who really made me rethink my disability were the likes of Johnny Peacock, Hannah Cockcroft, Hurricane Hannah Cockcroft, should I say? David Weir, the Paralympians, Kadina Cox, Ellie Simmons, names just sort of flooding into my head. These were the people who really made me think. Richard Whitehead, another one, who came into my head. I thought these people have really inspired me to go out there and do things. And then as I've sort of progressed and I've got to know people in the sport, and see some of the work they're doing. You know, I'm almost inspired almost on a daily basis now of lots of different people, and you know, you learn so much from them, not just their good ideas, but sometimes from their mistakes as well. You know, you think, well, drop the ball there, well,
Yeah.
make sure I won't do that myself, kind of thing. And so
True.
I would say that the class of 2012 for Paralympics GB were my first big inspirations, to really change the way I thought about the way I do things. But now, you know, I can call upon, you know, people I've worked with, you know, managers who have been mentors to me. Chris Andrew, when I worked at Volvo, he was a big supporter, and even now, you know, I work with some very, very good people who really push me in what I do and my content, and they support, you know, the likes of what I do with Quatermass Motorsport as well, which is quite humbling, and you know, I'm not the sort of person to talk about it, you know, but they do have that influence on me in a good way. You know, Martin, Rob, Peter, Keith, you know, if they're listening to this, they know who they are, you know, at SMC, and as I said, there's so many people there, but they just give me that confidence to just keep doing what I do. And I just keep pushing, and when I've got drivers and I see the extraordinary things they do, it just makes me want to work harder for them to think, you know, we're going to do some amazing things, and I'm going to get you guys to that place. But if you put in the hard work yourself, I'll back it up.
There's also another story that I want to get on to before my last question before we wrap things up here on episode 36. Now, earlier on this year, someone was working at the local dealership, whereas someone else in this conversation was having lunch before he sent me a link from the race on Sunday, Round 8, ABB FI8 Formula E in Berlin. Now, I was the German circuit commentator, and I'm now going to go to my phone because I'm going to quote verbatim what this man sent to me once I can find it. Let's just have a look.
Oh, that would have been July.
No, that was April this year.
April, yeah. Yes, because some of my colleagues went to that.
Yeah. Let's have a look. Scroll. No, I'm gonna have a. I've got to now sort of scroll through.
We talk a lot, so I suspect there's a lot of scrolling to go through.
Yeah, I'm scrolling quite a bit, especially going past when Tommy and Matty left WTF1.
Yeah.
Well, that was actually
that was a big shock.
That
Still
was,
listen to them on their P1 podcast.
Yeah. Okay. Right. You know what? I'm actually gonna show it on the screen now, which is the screenshot of Max's message to me at 11:21 a.m. And the headline on the race says, Freins leads shock-abbed Formula E front row lockout in Berlin. And Max, being Max, puts down, and you'll see it at the bottom, WTAF, and then 5 question marks in a row, which means basically what the actual F. Now, for those wondering how vocal I got on the circuit commentary, let's just say I'd gone Spinal Tap on that. I'd gone to volume number 11, like literally. And this was at the point where we'd had the finals, so it was Robin Freins and then Nico Miller on the front row. And it wasn't much between them, and it was the first time the Hankook Ion tyres had been used in wet weather conditions in Formula E, because they'd gone from Michelin after 8 seasons to Hankook. And then I phoned you, didn't I? And I was in the I was actually in the rest the cafe the food area for the Formula E people. So, and I was just sitting on my own, and he just said, "I'm really gutted I couldn't be there because I've already been to quite a few Cooper events this year." And then we fast forward to the London XL E-Prix doubleheader. I'm watching from home, and this man goes and, courtesy of Cupra, goes and enjoys what was a very, very interesting season finale, because being half inside, half outside, it was half wet, half dry. It was quite a lot of water, but for seeing the Gen 3 cars in person, what did you think?
It was, funny enough, my boss at the time, still is.
Oh God,
He didn't originally ask to get a ticket for me because he thought, oh well, Max isn't into Formula E. It was like, what? I'll watch, I like follow every round of that and Extreme E, you know. And of course, Cupra is one of the brands that I represent at SMC, so I do a lot of content around Cupra. So that's why I was getting so excited about the cars going for the front row, because up until then they hadn't had the best of seasons. The customer package they'd had was not the best in the world, let's be honest. So that's why it was such a shock to see them on the front row. And yeah, I got to go to the final round, and I have actually filmed a video from my visit there, and it was great because not only did I get to go and enjoy the racing, now I was with my colleague Luke, who it was his first time to a motorsport event. So I was getting, so for me, it's just like being at any other motorsport event. It's great to be there, but you kind of are used to it.
Yeah.
But for him, he was going through the buzz of it's the first one he's ever been to, and I was very lucky to also get to meet some really great people. I met some content creators. So Tommy, who's Gadgets Boy, you know, I also got to meet all the names conveniently leaving my head. T-shirt of Auto Social UK. The girl who presents on Fifth Gear, whose name has completely escaped my head. I do apologise if she's watching this. But also I got to spend time with Jan, who's the head of R&D at Cupra, and actually watch qualifying with him and get an understanding of what Cupra are doing, certainly going into next season to help the AB team, and then watching the race with Cecilia, who's the head of PR for Cupra.
Yeah.
And we're both sort of sat there, and we're both like, oh, we're at the back of the grid, oh, isn't this? And I said, can we go back to touring car racing? And her face lit up, and that was it. She was like, "Oh, I like this guy. He's speaking my language." Well, so I thought, right, I've clocked what your favourite kind of racing is.
Well, considering
wearing her EKS hat.
Oh, yeah. Well, funny enough, the two kings of ETCR are Matthias Ekstrom and Adrian Tambay, who, funny enough, I caught up with. He was having a chat with Fred Bertrand, who's the head of Mahindra Racing. Of course, you also had a chat with Thomas Biermeier, who is also head of the App Group. He's the team manager. I know Fred Espinoz, who is also interlinked with Fred Bertrand, because I first met those two in 2013 when they were working on the FIA Formula 3 European Championship at Formahorn for the likes of now newly signed BMW Motorsport driver Lello Marcello, who's now said goodbye to Acodis ASP and Mercedes after 7 years, and now has moved to BMW Motorsport. So I don't think it's going to be long before we hear him announced possibly in an LMDH for 2024. He's a great talent, and I think he deserves that opportunity. So yeah, it was quite a funny. I remember going to Zandvoort for 2013 for the DTM series finale, and I was the reporter for the checkered flag for FIA Formula 3 and also DTM. So there's me, Jamie O'Leary, Marcus Simmons. Now, this is when they were both working for Autosport. And then we had myself and Fred Bertrand and Fred Espinoz. And I still remember Fred Espinosa was a bit of a wild child back in those days. Well, most Frenchmen who are not married and have not got kids, they do let themselves off the leash a little bit, and he did. I remember talking to him the following morning, and I think he had a 7.9 on the hangover Richter scale. And I said, "Do you remember anything about last night?" He said, "No, I don't." And I went, "Well, if
Oh dear.
if these wolves had ears," and he was kind of like, "Oh shit!" I went, "No, it wasn't that bad. It wasn't that bad, mate." And that was really, really cool because Adrian was they had the as they like to call it, the young driver test in Berlin after round 8. So Adrian was going to be testing for Ab Cupra on the Monday. So I said to him, "It's been a long time since I've seen your good self." And I said, "How are you?" And he said, "Yeah, I remember you. Where from?" I said, "I still remember the days when you used to run an Audi in DTM with the Ironman livery, the one that you didn't have any luck with." And he went, "Yeah, I remember those days." And he said, "How are you?" And I said, and the thing was, I had the pleasure of interviewing his dad, who we lost not that long ago, Patrick Dombet, ex-F1 race winner and driver for Ferrari. So it was really, really good. Had a quick chat with Nick Cassidy, Sergio Sete Camara. Also had a quick chat with Dan Tixham, and I think that was on the Sunday, because he done the best overtake of the season. He went round the outside of Van Dorn, Bird, and Buemi.
Seem to remember it didn't end well with him and Van Dorn.
No, it didn't. It got to the point where Van Dorn was on the outside of turn 3. Tictum squeezed him. And yeah, the word sandwich was used in my German commentary that weekend. But I mean, yeah. But I met so many good people. Katie Fairman needs a shout out as well. She's been doing a lot of work with Formula E again. But yeah, so it just goes to show that there's always a little bit of correlation with regards to people's journeys that do happen, like with the Sim Racing Expo, with Formula E indirectly speaking. But Max, I've got one final question for you. And this is where I flip the script on my guests, but not in a bad way. Don't worry, you're not in trouble. You're fine.
All right.
Don't worry.
Okay.
He says with the fear of God in his eyes. I ask Max this question, or I ask every single guest this question, and then I give my corresponding answer as well. So, Max, if you had no glass ceiling when it comes to budget, unlike the Formula One cost cap, which is a running gag when it comes to introducing this question as well, if you could have a choice of either a road or a race car, or you can have one of each, and a circuit that you would drive those cars at, what would you pick? Where would you drive? And tell me why.
So I've been thinking about this because I won't lie, I have been listening to the podcast, so I've kind of been getting an idea, a little bit of
someone who's got himself prepared before I've even asked the question. Happy
yeah.
days.
So I have given it some thought, and I thought if I had a glass ceiling to do this, I thought maybe I'd have the Cupra Leon VZ TCR car, which hasn't been announced yet. But if anybody who is from Cupra who is watching, for me, I'll have to have a go. I thought about that, but then I thought if I had that opportunity, I'd probably want to race that. So I wouldn't pick that.
Okay.
And then I thought the one that I would really like to drive is the Lotus E20 Formula One car from 2012. And I'll explain why. Because Renault still run that car. And I do a lot of work with Renault through SMC. And I think that would be the ultimate, for me, opportunity is to drive that car. I know a couple of people who have driven it, and literally they come out of the car sobbing because it has such a profound effect on them. So I think as a race car, I'd pick that around Paul Ricard because that's where the car is based. I'd take Silverstone. Quite frankly, I'd take any circuit with that car. So that would be my choice of race car.
Okay.
Road car, bit of a left field choice. I'd drive it round Castle Combe, Britain's most dangerous race circuit. But it's also got the most dangerous corner as well, which is turn 1, because the braking zone has a crest on it, and a lot of people get where the car goes light at the back, lose it, and that's why it's the most dangerous corner.
Okay.
I've been fortunate enough to drive that, albeit in the sodding wet. But fortunately, my car, you could get over the crest, then get on the brakes, so I was all right going into turn 1. But the car I'd pick is the Gordon Murray T50.
Or with the 4-litre V12 that screams to nearly 12,000 RPM and has been tested by a certain IndyCar legend, none other than Scotland's Dario Franchitti. I like that.
So I picked that because, one, it's a car that's literally built about 5 minutes from my house. But also, if anybody who knows me is like, right, the ultimate road car, what if Max if we were to build a sports car for Max, what would it look like? And everybody would know it would have to be rear-wheel drive. It would have to have stupid amounts of horsepower, sound amazing, and have a manual gearbox. I'm a sucker I hate automatics. I can never get on with them because they're never. Everybody says, "Oh, you're quicker." I'm not convinced because they can never give me the gear I want. So a proper old school manual box. The T50, I think for me, as I say, that V12 screaming would just be, and it's a nerd's car. It's the kind of car that if you drove it down the road, anybody who has a slight interest in cars will know it's a sports car, but won't know what it is. But anybody who is really into their cars will know exactly what it is. And if I got stopped by somebody because they recognised for what it was, they're my kind of people. So, yeah, that for me would be the car. And again, if anybody, Gordon Murray, knows of a means of getting me in that car, just like, phone's always on. If anybody's got an opportunity to drive these cars, I'm all ears. I train. I train in the gym, so physicality it won't be an issue. But certainly but I also think for the YouTube channel as well, that would be some fantastic pieces of content.
Yeah,
that, especially with the Formula One car.
Come on, Gordon, holler at your boy. Okay, right. That's actually, you know what? I'm so glad that Max is actually the first person that has come prepared, because it's the last question I ask on every show. And it's always really, really cool because I now know exactly how I'm going to respond to this for very, very good reason. Now, you said the Lotus E20, which won the final race of the championship season. But there was another team that hasn't won for for coming up to 11 and a half years. It is, of course, the Williams F1 FW34, powered by the same engine, and that car would be run by me at the circuit it won at. Now, for those historians that will know, okay, yes, the two drivers in that car that season were Pastor Maldonado and Bruno Senna. Pastor went on to win the Spanish Grand Prix. But there was another side of the story that not a lot of people might remember, which is the garage fire that happened.
Yeah, I was
going to
say he was on fire, both figuratively speaking and literally speaking.
Well, the team were, and the amount of camaraderie in the pit lane was fantastic to see. So that would be my response to your Formula One choice. Now, we are going to go to a Gordon Murray original, the car that inspired the GMA T50. I am, of course, talking about the iconic McLaren F1, the V12 powered BMW V12 powered car.
Again, built all of about 10 minutes from my house.
Exactly. But there is one circuit, and one circuit alone, that car would be driven at by me. And when I give you all the distance in both miles and kilometres, 13.525. Just a shade over 8.5 miles.
Sav?
It is indeed. Sacre de la Sarthe.
God, I'm sad to know that.
But the thing is, that is why there are people showing their personality. Max, buddy, thank you so much for coming on the show. Links for Max's, I'm going to do 3 things here. Social media for Max will be in the description. Quatermass Motorsport, and of course, the SMC social media links and the YouTube channel. So please go like, share, and subscribe to that for us.
There's going to be a lot of links, isn't there?
Hey, that's the whole point. But Max,
buddy,
buddy,
it's scary to think how many pages I have to run.
No, don't worry. It's only going to be. I think it's going to be Facebook, X, or Twitter, or whatever the hell you want.
Tell you what, put my LinkedIn, because that's probably where I'm most active on LinkedIn nowadays.
Okay, so we'll have Max's LinkedIn. We'll then have Quatermass Motorsport social media.
Yeah, Facebook and Instagram for that.
And YouTube, is it, as well?
And YouTube. Yeah, we're on YouTube.
And for SMC will be Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube as well.
Yes, and make sure you get subscribed. Click the bell icon so you always get notified whenever I load up new content.
Spoken like a true pro, and I don't do that on my channel. And the reason being why I don't do it is Max's work at SMC, as I said, exemplary. Really, really proud of this man for what he's been able to achieve, both because you do social media and also conquest marketing there at SMC, don't you?
Yeah.
For Renault, Dacia, and for also Cupra as well. So go and check it out. And if you do want to get one of those cars from those 3 brands, speak to this man here. He'll hook you up.
I'm chasing 100,000 subscribers because I really, really, really want that play button. So if you guys can help me get there, then that would be really appreciated.
Max, again, thanks for coming on to the show. A big thank you to you all for watching. If you have been doing so either on the YouTube playlist or which is now part of YouTube Podcasts, which has recently happened as Google Podcasts has faded into obscurity. And a big thank you to everyone listening on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, and Downforce Radio, the nation's motorsport station. That's it for episode 36. If in doubt, flat out, my friends. And we'll see you next time on episode 37. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Goodbye.
Bye-bye. I'm waving for those who are listening on audio in case you're wondering.